Everybody, my name is Pinaki Kathiari. I'm going to facilitate our discussion today. I'm the CEO of Local Wisdom, a digital communications agency out of New Jersey. We have a thing for internal communications. I'm also the co-founder of Resource Hero. It's a Salesforce app that helps managers balance their team's workload. On top of that, I'm on the board of the IABC New York Tri-State chapter, and I oversee the Professional Development Committee. And I also launched a podcast last year called Why Does It Feel So Wrong to Be Human at Work? I'm into a lot of things. I get into a lot of things. In my work, I talk to a lot of people from internal comms, external comms, HR, IT, leadership. And my favorite thing to do nowadays is to create and find educational content that supports you all in all of your work. There's a bunch of events happening. Brielle, our marketing manager, she'll pop some upcoming things in the chat so you could join. Today, we're going to talk about how to handle the wave of communication requests that's coming at you all. We have the chat open. We figured that one out. The session is going to be recorded, or it is recorded. So, and you'll get the recording, so you could take notes or not. We have time for Q&A at the end, so feel free to drop questions in the Q&A panel or in the chat. I'll do my best to kind of like look out for them in the chat, but the Q&A panel, I'll definitely get to that. And if inclined, please turn on your cameras. We get energy by seeing your faces. We get energy from the engagement in the chat. So give us a heck yeah if something resonates with you out there as well. Let's keep it energetic. Wanted to take just a moment to thank ContactMonkey for hosting this event. Local Wisdom is a proud partner for ContactMonkey, and really happy to support the internal comms community along with you all. So thank you for putting this together and allowing us to share our wisdom. So with that said, let's just jump right in. We'll just meet our panelists. Tyler, why don't you kick us off and introduce yourself?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Pinaki, and welcome everyone to joining us here today. Appreciate you bearing with us over the technical difficulties, even 3-4 years past pandemic. I don't think it's ever going to change. And so my name's Tyler. I do communications and consulting for a few different companies in the real estate industry, as well as ContactMonkey. I'm excited to join today. 5 years of experience in this, more at a smaller scale, kind of startup company, which brings its own challenges when you kind of know everyone in a company, 100, 150 people, but excited to be here with the other panelists and kind of jump in on some questions and learn from each other.
Excellent. Thank you. Right on. That's exactly what we're doing. I think this is one of those webinars when I like to facilitate. We're all learning from each other, even from like the chat, even from you all that are out there listening in. So besides Tyler and ContactMonkey, we have Sarah and Panano joining us. And I've worked with both Sarah and Panano in the past, and I know their style and how they manage expectations of basically everyone around them. Panano, in fact, had to rein me in a couple of times when we worked together. So Panano, how about you go next and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Pinaki. Yeah, my name is Panana McCory, and I'm on the internal communications team here at Glassdoor. As Pinaki just mentioned, I am a LDub alum, so had the pleasure of working at Local Wisdom for a few years. I've been in internal comms for about 10 years, comms as a whole for about 20 years, but really focused on internal for about 10. And I've had the pleasure of working in a variety of industries for a variety of companies of all shapes and sizes. I've done small, medium, and large. So I've had exposure to a lot of different things. And so I think my perspectives are probably going to be as well-rounded as they can be, just because I've experienced pretty much all of it. And so just excited to be here. And of course, ready to kind of dive in and share what we know with you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Panano. And finally, we have the magnificent Sarah. Hey, Sarah, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am Director of Internal Communications at American Tower. We're a real estate investment trust that owns telecommunications real estate all over the world. But I am in the lovely Boston suburbs and support the US-based division of our organization. Before that, I spent 11 years and change in internal comms in banking. And then had a brief stint in the world of PR, which was not for me, but was a great experience.
Excellent. Yes, we have a few Massachusetts in the house here as well. So thank you, Sarah. Yeah, let's just kick it off. So I'm going to start by just setting the stage, right? So this one is about stakeholder requests. And so throughout your throughout your IC career, you've all just been getting requests of all sorts and shapes and sizes. So just to set the stage, like what are these requests typically? Who are they coming from? How do they show up to you? And I'll ask the bonus question in there. What's one of the more crazier, more ridiculous requests that you've gotten in the past? And maybe Sarah, since you ended the last one, maybe you kick us off with this first one.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so I'm in I guess, kind of a mid-sized organization. And I mean, I feel like it just sometimes feels like it's coming at you from all directions, right? So there's everything from here's this big project and I'm being pulled into the beginning of it, or we have an M&A transaction that I've been pulled into, to like I run into somebody in the hallway and they're like, oh, hey, I've been meaning to get in touch with you, right? Like, they're, yeah, we do not have a formalized like intake process here that some other larger organizations might have. So I feel like it's kind of catch as catch can. And because I am the primary communications person supporting this division, I've been here long enough that now people know to come to me, which is great and sometimes hard.
Totally get that. It's like requests coming from all directions, like email through spoken word and while walking by someone on the hallway.
Yeah.
Right. So it's nuts. Yeah, we just have to be aware. Tyler, how about yourself? Would you like to chat a little bit about the requests and work requests that come at you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely can jump in on that. So, I mean, for us being in such a small company, it seems to come in such informal ways. I mean, whether it's on Slack or Teams or kind of in senior leadership meetings or often just the chatter in the office. It's part of the great part about being back in the office, having those water cooler chats, but it comes across so casual, which does hinder the chances of being able to document it. And because it is such a small company and people know each other on that personal level, I find they're a little bit more eager to be direct and maybe aggressive with their requests because they feel they have that personal relationship with you. You know, can be anyone coming up to us, often as someone in HR or comms. You are the first person employees go to if they see an email or a Slack message or Teams message or internet message, whatever it may be going out. It's often signed off with your name, and thus it seems like you're the first person that everyone wants to go to with questions. So, you know, I often find doing the job right the first time and making those communications as clear as possible helps. Even though it's a bit more legwork at the start, it's going to reduce the amount of questions that we get afterwards. So kind of one of the things we work with.
Right on. Yeah, I think that's one of the kind of clear things as a request. It's not like, ordering a sandwich, at the deli or, at the kiosk and things like that, or just saying it. There's this kind of like back and forth that happens that has to be managed with every request as well, which is super important. So right on. And Panano, that's what do you think about that? What's coming at you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question to answer because you have to think about it from the vantage point of small size to medium size to large size, right? And so Sarah alluded to larger organizations sometimes have intake tools. What I found is that having been in a large organization and having the intake tool and having that structure, it's something when you're stepping into a communications role, especially an internal comms role, I think it's important early on that you establish what is going to be helpful in you maintaining the structure that you need to get your job done, right? And so for me, it's like, regardless of the size of the company, the intake tool is a non-negotiable. So it's one of the things when I come in from day one, regardless of who I'm joining, if you're bringing me in to kind of set the stage or the foundation for this program, we're going to have one because to both of their points, there's some asks that come in that they shouldn't come in from a conversation in the hallway or a Slack message, because that's hard to keep track of if you're getting inundated with different requests via Slack or email. It's hard for you to keep track, and for me, asks usually slip through the cracks that way. So for me, it's important to have a little bit of structure, but I also understand that from an internal comms perspective, sometimes that's hard to do depending on the urgency of the ask. But I would say that where you have the ability to kind of put some process in place early on. It's really important that you do that from the very beginning. So from an ask perspective, for me, they come from pretty much everybody. I get them from senior leaders. Like currently I work with our senior exec team. So they have a direct pipeline to me. So they will typically send an email or Slack. I get it from frontline employees. I get it from pretty much anybody because they know that I'm attached to internal comms. And so it's like once they have that understanding of who you are in your role, it's just natural that they would feel that you have the answers to everything. And so I try to accommodate where I can, but again, just trying to be mindful of my time. And so I do want to answer the question you asked about the strangest request. And so I was sharing this with the team yesterday. When I worked for the bank, one of the questions that I got was from one of the leaders that I was supporting. He was about to serve his wife with divorce papers and wanted to include a humanized note in what was being served and asked me if I could quickly review and just kind of tweak the message that was planning to go in with her serving papers. And so at the time I said yes, because, you're new in the role. You're just trying to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. You think it's a part of your job. So you kind of acquiesce to it. But, hindsight, 15 years down the road, I realized it was probably not the best ask to take on.
Now I asked, did it work? Like, how was it? Like, was it like?
I did not want to touch
like,
it after reviewing it. It was just like, yeah, this is the best I got for you.
Yeah, that's an awesome metric to measure on that. Yeah,
I realized I forgot that part of the question. My story is not as Panano's is just like next level, but I would say I had an instance here where there was talk about, and this was a little while back, about the CEO coming to the office to do a town hall. And our company is still sort of in this, like, we're a big company, but we're still not that big. We're kind of scrappy. And like, we like to sort of MacGyver what we can in some instances, whatever. So there was talk about, let's do the CEO town hall, and we're trying to figure out how to pull it off in this space because we have 700 people here. We don't have like a big event space, right? And one of our leaders had suggested, well, how about the CEO can like stand on the loading dock and just like talk to people? And I'm thinking, there's 700 people who work here. And also, in case you forgot, the loading dock is where the dumpsters are in the back of the building. We're Fortune 500 company. Over my dead body is the CEO. And they're very, you talk about, you get requests. We hate to say no. We're going to figure things out, right? But this was an instance where I was like, no. That is not happening. We are not we could do this. We could do this. We are not doing that. We are not that company anymore.
That's awesome. And yeah, and it's important. I'm glad you did say no. I wouldn't expect another ending to that story. But yeah, that's what happens because everyone thinks it's easy. Everyone thinks they can make a better movie, but no, you can't, because there's people who have spent a lot of time learning how to direct and produce and film, just like you all have in internal comms. You have this understanding. I'd love to hear, even in the chat, if y'all have a funny story of a request or whatnot. I'd love to hear some of the other things that are coming out. I don't know if anyone could beat Panano's one on that one. But even for me, a long time ago, I was in the world of web design, and before even user experience design was a thing. And it was pretty typical for me to get a request. I was like, oh, I need 3 design concepts for a meeting tomorrow. And it was like, all right. And it just kind of put me out there to just kind of do it type of thing. But I think in the same way, after doing that, I kind of realized as I learned more about user experience design that no, we do have to do the right research. We do have to go through certain steps and processes before I could just put out a design. And I think that just user experience design has set that tone. I think internal comms could do the same thing for a variety of things, including this one. And that's why we're here today. And that's what I'm really excited to talk about as well. One of the issues that I personally struggle with in all this work is that I have this adrenaline of finding a way to make it work. not to put the CEO on the loading dock, but just the doing a lot of something in a short amount of time. I'm just like, how can we make it work? So I do end up making it happen time and time again. I would deliver those designs the next day and whatnot. But what that does is it creates a cycle. And you all, I know everyone on this panel is a problem solver. Probably everyone on this audience is a problem solver. So just curious, has this shown up for you? And like, how do you kind of manage your own like personal investment into the request? Hey, Panano, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, with internal communications, for me, a lot of it really just boils down to what is going to be right for our employees. Because at the end of the day, I approach everything with I'm an employee. So I think through, the long-term impacts and just, how much time I lend to any one ask really just kind of depends on what the impact to our employees is going to be, right? And so for me, I've tried to just kind of adapt. And I know everyone here can probably relate to the, just get it done by any means necessary. The problem with get it done by any means necessary is a lot of times if we're doing something and it's actually successful, we forget to document the approach. So then the next time it comes up or something similar comes up, it's just like, well, how do I go back or how do I replicate that? Because I don't even remember in the freneticness of the last ask what we did, to solve for it. And so for me, a lot of it now, and it's tedious, right? And I think that people oftentimes, especially if you're already underwater and you're already a small team and you're already doing a million things that may not even be your job on top of your job, it gets hard to document. And so for me, a lot of it, while it's happening real time, like our team, we will start a doc and just start dropping things that we're doing while we're doing it. That way we have a record of how we solved whatever it was that, transpired. And then we use that to create a more process-oriented approach for the next time. Again, I know it's not always easy to do, especially when you're just putting out wildfires, but I feel like if you're constantly in a state of chaos and you're constantly in a state of emergency, you're never going to get to a point as a team, whether there's 2 or 20 of you, to where you're operating really in a manner or an effective way that really helps the team, but also helps the company.
Love that. I love that so much. Document while doing is so important, because you're right. Like, because you find yourself asking that question, like, what did we do again last time? And have to kind of go through the same mental processes where you always had it. Right on. Tyler, what do you think? Do you kind of run the same problem solving issue where you're just like, I want to save the day?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at my past company, I often found that being that yes man, and like you said, always there is a way to find it. We'll get the job done somehow. It worked well for a while until it got too overwhelming, and everyone knew that they could maybe take advantage of that, knowing that you are a yes man. So starting at a new company, maybe about a year and a half ago, I was really quick to kind of set those expectations that there is going to be, maybe a lead time to having get things done, or you do have to go through the formal intake form, whatever it may be. But yeah, definitely setting those expectations and document setting on Panono's part. It is definitely a way that you can easily get everything organized. Project management, I saw Lindsay was writing in here in the chat. I found interesting with their intake form in Microsoft, finding a way to automate it and how the entry makes its way into the project management process would be super interesting to learn, because right now we don't have that capability, and it really is on us on the human resource side to be able to take care of it. But yeah, it's definitely a great point, Lindsay.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no one kind of like exactly looking out for us and the way the request comes in all directions, there's no way to even like know exactly how much we're doing. But I'll move to Sarah. Any thoughts on that? Because you're definitely a problem solver.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I feel like similar to you, right? There is this, I think sometimes what draws us to this field is being able to be that person who can wrangle the chaos and come up, make it look easy and come up with this, whatever amazing thing is that you're aiming for. I think Panano's point about how in the moment when you do get pulled into these things to really think about it and document what that process is. I've done that also. And then I think what then becomes really helpful is going back to that after the fact and looking at this whole thing with a little bit of distance and a critical eye and thinking about, okay, where are actually the areas of this where we really need to be engaged, and where are the parts of this process where I am going to add value and it's important for me to be here, versus are there things in here that actually might be able to be farmed out to somebody else? So the next time we're in this position, how much do I really need to be involved versus, again, are there other things where somebody might be better suited to pick up some of this work to help keep me more in the communication space versus, getting pulled into a lot of these other things that tends to happen. And then I would say too, one of the things that helped me coming into this position, when I was hired, it was the first time that there was a dedicated internal communications role for this division of the organization. So people here weren't used to having somebody do what I do. And so I put together a roadshow deck that I brought to the executive team. I brought out to all of their individual staff meetings and some team meetings of some of the other larger organizations to really walk through in detail. Here's what I do, and here's how I can support all of you. And that level of support varies through the organization. Like, we've just sort of decided, yes, like president, pretty much anything that's needed, like I am there. Those senior vice presidents report into that president. I'm really working with them closely on a lot of things and owning things at a level where, as you start getting further down in the organization, you can't own everything, right? And so there's the, okay, here's the level where I'm a consultant for you. So if you write this thing and you send it to me, I will give you edits. I will help you with the template, yada, yada. And then I've also spent a lot of time into how do I create a lot of self-service resources that people managers can use, that, project folks can use, so that they pretty much can do things at a high level and kind of the quality style that we're looking for without a lot of engagement from me.
You're saying so many wonderful things. I'm taking notes, but no, that was some awesome stuff right there, because we're kind of like moving into exactly, templates for the win. We're moving into like the solutions part of this, but there was some really good kind of things that were said by all of our panelists here. Like from Panano, I love the document while doing, because you're gonna have to do it again. And Tyler is like setting boundaries as far as like how long things will actually take to set those types of expectations. And Sarah, you talked about a few things from like what we actually do and what we don't do. And I think that's what we don't do is very interesting, because I think good strategy also includes what not to do. And that sets like really good boundaries. And it's the idea around like, what is it that I only or our team could do and must do, to like, what would we delegate? What would we like automate? What would we not do? Are all valid questions to like ask yourself. You said one other thing too, Sarah, that was interesting, is like defining a level of urgency. Like you said, like the CEO, they'll go top of the priority list type of thing. So these are all things that even from like yourself and for other people around you, these are tools to help kind of keep yourself from just going a little bit too crazy or burning out, or or tiring out the team, or staying in that cycle where it kind of continues. So yeah, but let's kind of dip more into like the solutions of it. We talked about a lot of things, but let me just kind of maybe get a little bit of detail on some of the things that I just heard from what you said. Like both Panano and Sarah, you both mentioned documenting like while doing, because I struggle with this as well. Do you use like just have like a shared drive in Word, or is it like some asynchronous documents that you're using, or what are you using to document while doing?
So we have a shared corp comms folder, which anybody who's on our communications team has access to. And so within that, it's everything from templates from presentation decks to emails if you're sending something to a vendor, to if you're sending something to a stakeholder, if you're sending something to a member of leadership. We have different templates for everything. If it's responding to a press inquiry for our PR team, we templatize everything. And so it's like, even within that templatized kind of environment, there's also instructions where there can be, right? So like for our internal communications newsletter that goes out weekly, we use Asana, which is a project management tool, but we found that it also was a great way for us to get content from stakeholders rather than them emailing or messaging us or slacking the content or the copy that they needed in. It was a great way to just send out a weekly request. They access the calendar, they can drop their stuff in there. It automatically uploads. Everybody on the comms team has access to it. So if someone is out of pocket, somebody can just pull that information and make the newsletter for the following week. And so documentation is huge. I think for us, another aspect is, from an IC role, most of us have had experience in PR comms. And so I think it's really important that, as you're leaning into internal communications, that you don't forget that you have to have some collaboration and crossover with your external team as well, because you're going to work on a lot of the same initiatives at different points in time. Something that's blowing up externally is going to impact the employees internally. And so making sure that there's a cohesiveness and a collaborative spirit amongst that team, I think, is important too. But we use Google Suite. So, in another life, we use Microsoft, which I actually enjoy more, but our IT team is never going to go for it. But so right now with G Suite, a lot of it is that. And then in regards to like how we share out that information, we have a separate folder that we've created for external stakeholders so that they can go in there without needing to come to us and access any of the documents or anything that they need on their own, that they can use, to Sarah's point about self-service, which enables them to kind of also, feel free to kind of just create without necessarily needing to check in with us.
Nice. Really cool. Was it similar for you as far as documenting, Sarah? Well,
yeah, so I would say we have a combination of like, there's an internal comms drive that has, limited access. And so I think I have a few different things, right? Like there's kind of a sort of a process document that's trying to capture sort of top to bottom. Here's a lot of the basic communication tasks. I did this job on my own the first 5.5 years that I worked here, and then was able to hire somebody within the past couple of years, and then realized everything about how I do this is up here and it's not anywhere else, right? Yeah. So have had to get better at all of that. And then certainly, with a lot of sort of like once a year program things that happen, like we're toward the end of like our annual cycle for our sort of big global recognition program. And so that's something where, because there've been some new components that have been added recently, we're getting in the habit of doing that annual, okay, here's what went well, here's what didn't, right? Your whole, it's like a combo process doc, lessons learned, what do we want to think about when we start this up in 6 months and we've forgotten everything we've just done kind of situation. And that stuff is really helpful too. And then, I mean, similar to Panano, I work very closely with our marketing team. They are responsible for making me look good, making our leaders look good. They just put out a new like PowerPoint template that we shared with the organization like within the past week. And so they're really fantastic with helping with a lot of that stuff. And then again, like Panano, I work closely with our external comms folks, and we primarily, because we're a Microsoft organization, we're sharing a lot of things within Teams groups. So we have a specific external comms Teams group where we're sharing a lot of materials with each other in that space. And then I would say something else, kind of getting back again to this whole like, how are you helping people do things without you in the right way? So one of the things that I've really been focused on the past like year and a half is better positioning our managers to be communicators within the organization, because so many, they're just involved in so much day-to-day communication that's happening. And so I launched a training session in partnership with our learning and development team last year that was specifically targeted to people managers, that I had delivered to close to 90% of the managers in our organization, going through just some really basic stuff around like, what is your role as a communicator being a manager? What tools are there to help you? I obviously am here to help you, but when are kind of the times when it makes the most sense to engage me? And I earlier this morning was working on refreshing that presentation because I'm delivering it again tomorrow. But I think that's been really beneficial because it has helped it just means there are fewer of these, hey, we have this new hire announcement, or, in March, there's a bazillion promotion announcements coming out of the performance cycle, right? Where, a couple years ago, I might have been basically writing or rewriting a lot of these myself versus now, things are coming to me in a better place, which makes my job easier.
Nice.
So that's been a win-win.
That's a total win-win. I just need to harp on that for a second because you took you took it to the next level by creating training in coordination with your training and development team within the organization. So not only are you making your job easier, you're like leveling up everyone's competency in communication in the organization, or at least the managers to start with. Is fabulous. And yeah, I got to see Sarah speak about her work in manager communications at a conference. I think it was last summer, and it was fantastic work. So kudos to you there. We talked about also like the concept of like intake forms, and I saw like intake forms like a little like get mentioned in the chat a few times as well. And there's so many like tools for it. Like I know like Asana was mentioned, and someone was using Asana with if this then that. We've used Asana before. We've used Smart Sheets. We've used like Microsoft Project and Teams, and just to connect things. But I think they're all like really important stuff. Tyler, have you kind of used, or any of your clients use like intake forms or processes like that, or any thoughts on that side of it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's several different forms or intake ways you need to keep in mind. I always say communications is a two-way street, and just like we shouldn't be sending all of our communications out on one platform, let's say just email or just Teams or just the internet, we need to put it across several platforms to make it accessible for everyone. Just like it goes out on a multi-channel, it has to come in on a multi-channel. So communications are going to come in from email, they're going to come in from instant messaging, they're going to come in the form of in-person chatter, as well as other tools or intake forms that bring in the communication. So we've used just like Google Forms and such kind of like easily accessible tools that everyone uses. Or I have a few clients like the real estate sector using ContactMonkey, just that two-way feedback that people can emoji reactions or two-way feedback surveys. And when that information comes in, it's all centralized in one place on one dashboard. That way you can really just kind of take down all that feedback on the intake. And always important to make sure you're sharing that out as well, right? If you're asking for these intake requests and you're not sharing the feedback from people, or you're not working on these action items, people are going to stop giving you feedback or stop submitting intake because they feel like it's falling on deaf ears. So I think that's, one of the best practices we always try and do at each town hall. I know a lot of companies do those kind of monthly town halls, or maybe it's quarterly, is having a small portion of that to report back on your findings and report back on this is kind of the consensus we're hearing from everybody, and how can we continue to push it forward and solve the problems while prioritizing.
So fantastic. This is great stuff. I love you all. You're putting so many good stuff, great wisdom out there. Yeah. So one of the things that you all have said has been this like collaboration and this like two-way street, because right, you could create an intake form and create processes and things like that, and that could make the team impersonal, or like it's just not fun work with y'all anymore. And we don't want that. So I love the idea of like, one, reporting back what Tyler just said in town hall meetings, to kind of put yourself in, we are comms, you work with us, and here's what we're seeing and how we're educating you all. And I think like the whole concept of collaborating with just the different areas within your organization is super, super important. In fact, very pivotal, because like if you're not able to create good relationships with the people you work with, or even like some of those departments that you work with every now and then, it's just going to make life just more and more difficult in the future. It's kind of one of the things I say, like one of the things that I do is to create a good relationship with people at the start. And when they kind of set the stage well at the start and kind of realize that, we're working towards the same thing. Whenever I give feedback or they give me feedback, it's not personal. And that speeds it up so much, because like the last thing we want to do is like be wondering for half a day why this type of feedback came in, and it's just such a waste of time. So kind of starting with that relationship and collaboration is, I think, super key, and you all like touched on that. Yeah, we've heard a lot. I'll also kind of provoke folks in the chat if there's any kind of like, ideas, tools, resources, things that have worked for you in the past. Feel free to pop them in the chat, and again, feel free to keep adding like questions in the Q&A box. We're gonna get to that as well. I'm gonna flip the script a little bit. What about things that have not worked well to help quell that wave, right? Does anyone of you want to like share any things that you have tried that just didn't work, that I suppose we should warn our audience from like not trying themselves or trying it in a different way? Yeah, Sarah, do you want to kick us off on this one? I'm just randomly picking people. So
yeah, no. I mean, it's an interesting question. So the prior organization I worked at was much larger, and I was part of a communications function that had like 50 people on it, and had a dedicated, internet team and an events team, and in that environment, toward the end of my time there, we were rolling out a whole intake process to try to really better manage our workflow and people's time. Also, too, being in a heavily regulated industry, you just want a lot more documentation of kind of who touches what when, all that kind of stuff. And it was a SharePoint based platform. I think like those things, I think there just can be like the growing pains of rolling it out, and it's easy to start feeling like I'm putting so much time into like checking the boxes and filling out the forms in here that I feel like I'm not getting that at the actual work product done, right? But I think in an instance like that, there is actually a benefit, because like for a single project, there are going to be a number of people who are touching it, and you want to be organized and you want to be efficient, and so I think, there's an element of like going through the change curve to roll something like that out, but like ultimately, you do it and you're better for it as an organization. I mean, I think where I am right now, because we're just a lot smaller, I've had like some initial conversations with my counterparts at the corporate communications level to sort of think about, is this something we maybe should start doing? But we just haven't gotten to a point where that really is like needed or makes sense for us, because we are just so lean to begin with, that like when work is coming in, let's come into one of like 3 people, right? So there's only so much of that process you need to be managing. I mean, I guess this is like a terrible answer to your question, but I still feel like it comes back to like, how are you being really deliberate about how you are doing the work that you're doing, and then the relationships that you have, right? So that you're able to, tell somebody, when I can't do this, but I can do that, or here are the options, and if I do this, it means I'm not going to do that kind of stuff.
Totally. Setting
Sort of
expectations,
skirted that, but that's
no, you didn't.
I
Actually, what you said first makes a lot of sense, because when we create processes for things, like we can overcomplicate it. I'm really good at that, so I've been working on that for the last several years. But yeah, like you're right. Like you find yourself like filling out a form, and you're like, this is just too difficult. I don't want to do this. And if it's too difficult for people to use, they'll just find another way, right? So like we know that. So and it's funny. One of my first jobs, I was intern, was SOP writing, but it was, so I've been knee deep in process since like college, I guess. But that was like manufacturing processes. So it had to be like step 1, take the cap off. Step 2, it was really things like that, because it had to be from a compliance standpoint. But as we kind of like got into business, I realized that I can't write or put processes at that level of like detail. So there's this kind of like breadth and depth to process creation that definitely you have to be mindful of, because if it's just too difficult to use and too cumbersome, either mistakes will happen or people just won't use it. So I think that's a great point, Sarah. I hope I articulated your point right now in a different way there too, because I thought that's what it made. That's the way it made sense for me.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I liked what you just said around like, if you make it too hard for people, they're either just gonna like go rogue and right, like, so I think that's where you need to find that right balance for your organization, and what does that look like for you?
Absolutely. And they will find another way, right? And it goes for so many different things, even like intranets and communication. So if you don't have a channel where people can communicate, they will find one. It's just that you won't know about it. You know, like I've seen that and time again. But yeah, Panano, anything on your side, anything that has not worked, any warnings that you flags
Yeah,
your
I mean, I used to try to ignore requests. That was just kind of the easy way to
Love it.
address that. It's like if I just pretend like I didn't see it. If it's really urgent, they'll find me. They'll Slack me, they'll send me a follow-up email. They'll find a way to get to me to let me know that it was important. So that doesn't work because they will always find you. So, all jokes aside, I think for me, a lot of it has been saying yes to way more than I know myself or my team are capable of handling. And that never works, right? So, I understand that when you're a smaller team of, maybe one or just a handful of people, like it's always a challenge to not feel like you need to take on everything to prove your value and to show the worth. And, I think that depending on the types of leaders you have, there's various ways to prove that you're an asset without saying yes to everything. And so for me, where, saying yes to stuff in the past either bombarded our team and backlogged us to where we just couldn't sustainably get anything done, to the point where it made us kind of rethink how we were approaching it. And so, I don't know about how most organizations operate. I know that all of the organizations that I've worked at in the last 10 years, focus and lean heavily on data. And so for me, when we're thinking through the different types of tools that we want to bring in or that we want to look at as an organization, data for me always jumps to the top of the list. How much data can I get from this tool? Does it help me tell the story of the work that myself and my team are doing? And will it help us down the line in terms of making sure that we're capturing ROI when we're having to go back to leadership and say, this is why I need more resources, or this is why I need more headcount, or, like the numbers speak for itself. So if we're sending out a weekly newsletter and right now, we have 725 employees and we're consistently at an open rate of 80 something percent, like that's great. But our leaders are like 80 something percent is great, but how do we know that they're actually reading it? Well, great. We've got click-through rates now. We also have average read time. So it shows how much time is spent looking at the newsletter. So as you start to evolve your data stack, I think it makes it easier for you to now start saying no to certain requests, because you can show, like, when I'm more intentional about the things that I do say yes to, this is what success looks like. And so they're less apt to just heap stuff on you.
So many great things in there. Yeah, so can't ignore requests and can't say yes to everything is one thing that you said. And I'll add something interesting to that I've tried that I somewhere in the middle, which is give it a day. And this has been one of those things where, it's weekend, somebody's panicking on the side and like, this is going to go wrong. We need to message this person and say these things. And you know that feeling because you're seeing this message and your heart rate is going up as you're reading it. And it's a Saturday or a Sunday. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to give it a day. Let's see what happens. And I've done that a few times and the problem solved itself. Just a day, not totally ignoring it. And the thing is that if they're like, well, why are you so late in responding? Well, we're busy. There's a lot of things going on, and plus it's the weekend. But one way to think about it, just somewhere in the middle of like not responding and saying yes to everything. The other thing that Panano said was about like the metrics. Totally true. We've used like the tools that we said, like Asana or Smartsheets and other things to measure the volume of work coming in. And in some of our engagements, I could like clearly say that, you know what, when we reach this threshold of volume, errors are happening. I just see it. Every time we hit this number or go beyond this number, there's mistakes. So I need more team, or we need more help, or we need to keep it lower than this number. So just it's like Panana, and I think both Panana and Sarah said that. It's just like, what are the limits of where we're going to take this and being clear on that thing. Ooh, we said a lot. Sorry on that one. Tyler, any other things you want to add as far as just what has not worked or any things we should watch out for? And then we'll get into like Q&A after that from the audience.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely keep it quick. Mine was similar to Panona's as well. You know, the saying yes is one thing, but I find even saying no sometimes can be deadly. You'll get people that say, well, why no? And it can maybe create distrust with them, or they say, why no? And there's pushback, which you have to deal with. So my best way of combating that has, back to the documentation piece, been, okay, document what you took care of for your key stakeholder in marketing, and what did you take care of for your key stakeholder in sales for Q1? So that if in Q2 you have sales asking you to do a whole bunch of things, maybe to communicate, you can say, well, in Q1, we actually took care of 9 of your requests. And in marketing for Q1, we only took care of 3 of the requests. So in Q2, we're actually going to be focusing on marketing a bit more and making sure that they feel heard. Another thing I find that helps is there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. You know, I don't know, I'll get back to you now. You know, maybe I'm going to go speak with some other comms peers that are in the industry that I've met at conferences or LinkedIn, or maybe I'm going to go speak with other communities or other people on my team or senior leadership, and I'll get back to you. You know, people are often right up against you. They want it there and now. They don't want to wait for it. And another thing I often say is we're so used to taking care of people in these roles that we often forget to take care of ourselves. So back to that boundaries piece, you know, it's really about managing it and letting them know that I might not have an answer for you right now, but I'll get back to you. And it seems to kind of lessen the blow when delivering it. But yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Totally awesome stuff. Yeah.
I think
go ahead.
one thing, your comment, I guess, to like build on what Tyler just said, and then Pinocchio, when you mentioned this idea of like letting things sit for a day, I think what that just made me think about is one thing that I think is hugely beneficial is you know, I think a lot of times people come to you and they say, hey, we need an email about this, we want to make a video, and we want this and we want that. Like people come to you because there are these like specific tactics that they have in their head of like, this is the stuff that we want. And I think it's making sure to be really deliberate about like backing that conversation way up and starting with, what is it that you actually need to tell people? Who are the people that need to know, right? Because I think in a lot of times, a request that might be for 5 different things at face value, like once you really dig into what the actual need is, and again, like making sure, is the timing right? Is this really aligned with the business strategy and it's really a priority? Like once you really take the time to dig into that, then you can scope something that's appropriate. Or yeah, maybe it's a video, but it doesn't make sense to make that video until 6 months from now when this product is further along, or any of that kind of stuff. And I think that too is where it doesn't, you don't need to tell somebody a flat no for something, but a lot of times when you really figure out exactly what that need is, it oftentimes can be not as big as this person had in their head when they came to you to have this conversation. Sometimes on the flip side, it's way more complicated, but at least you know you're approaching this in a thoughtful way that makes sense, and the work that you do is going to be as meaningful as it can be.
Absolutely, such a great point. Just to really understand like what is the strategy, or like not beyond like what is it that you want to say to people, is like what is the action you want people to take, and starting like backwards from there. So what do I need to say? So like, and that positions you as like the consultant strategist and not just the order taker in that side of the fence here. Nice. Thank you all so much. There's been some questions that are coming in. I see like Panano answering them in the chat already right now. So let's start with one that came in earlier on about IC team size. So how large do you think an IC team should be to serve the needs of like a 3,500 employee and growing company? And I'll tell you after you answer the number of people that they currently have.
So, I mean, 3,500 for me, it's, you know, it's different, right? So when I worked at Wells Fargo, we had 250,000 employees across the company, but I supported consumer lending. And so within consumer lending, you're talking about 25,000 people. For 25,000 people, we had roughly 62 communicators. on our team. And I will say that there were times where it felt like not everybody was really kind of working, right? And so in that instance, maybe we had too many, but we had people who were specific to like executive comms versus contact center comms versus leadership comms, so you can break it down a little bit further the larger the organization. For 3,500 employees, I think it really depends on how distributed they are. Are they in the field? Are they in an office? Like, what does that look like? Because for Sarah, for instance, where a lot of their employees are out in the field, it probably looks a little bit different from me, where all of our employees are truly behind the desk. We don't need as many because we don't have to find creative ways to get information to employees who are out in the field, because everybody is stationary. So for us, we have 725 employees, roughly, team of 3. Had to fight to get the team of 3, but we have a team of 3. And it's we're always underwater because of just the nature of our business. But I think that, comfortably for us to manage, we have the right number. So for 3,500, again, I think it really just depends on the type of industry we're talking about, the type of company and the type of work that they do and how they need to communicate with their employees to really give a good number.
True. It's such a depends answer, but there's 3 for 750, you said there. Sarah, what are any thoughts you have on this question? The team size of a company that's 3,500.
Yeah. I mean, so the division that I'm responsible for, we have about 1,300 people and change. And we have 2 dedicated comms people, although I have an open role right now. So if anybody wants to be a senior communications
Pop that in the
specialist
chat.
here in the Boston area, hit me up. So we have 2 dedicated internal comms people for 1,300 folks, but we also have there's some overlap. Like, I get a lot of support from the marketing team. There's sort of an extension of me at times. And we have a corporate communications function, and they happen to handle stuff like our, benefits enrollment communications and some of those other things. But I think totally, to Panano's point, it really depends on how much variation is in your employee base in terms of do you have different groups doing totally different jobs, right, where they need totally different kinds of information? How much are you remote versus in the office? Where is your company in its growth phase? Are you pretty mature and things are status quo? Are you on an M&A spree and there's changes coming around every corner? I think all of those things are going to be factors. And like I said, I was part of a much larger team like Panano was, and even then there were way more people and it still never felt like there was enough. So I don't know if there's some unicorn internal comms team out there that feels like they're adequately staffed. But yeah, I mean, again, I guess it really just does depend. And I guess, you rely on your friends. I always say, it takes a village to pull off what I do in this organization, which, gets back to the relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think of IC teams, I think of who are you kind of tapping on in your organization to help you as well in that way. Yeah, Tyler, any thoughts on team size or any trends that you've seen through your work?
Yeah, it's always a tricky one. There's so many factors that go into what your headcount can be and who allows it and budget approvals and such. I guess all I would add on to what the ladies have already said here is, if you're not getting that approval for an extra person or to come on, Camille, I think it was you that asked the question here, and maybe you can't have an extra staff that's there to support you and you are drowning in your work. The other angle to go with senior leadership is often, okay, if we can't afford a salary of 50 grand or whatever it may be, can we afford a tool, a software platform that's maybe 10 grand? It's a fraction of the cost, but it's going to speed up your work. It's going to take away hours from your day to day. It's going to give you that, maybe easy drag and drop template builder or analytics page that kind of just allows you to streamline things in your brand and in your colors moving forward. And that way, even though it doesn't feel like you have more team members supporting you, you'll notice a bit more hours coming back to your day-to-day and give you a bit of a break for everything else. it's just a bit of a baby step in that direction when senior leadership's not giving you the head count.
Absolutely. And yeah, we have some things that are coming out that'll help you with like getting buy-in and actually understanding that relationship between like volume of work, outcomes, and team size and the things that you have to create. So stay tuned on that. But as we're kind of drawing towards the end of the hour here, I wanted to just take a moment to thank our panelists for joining us and just sharing this great wisdom. So many great things were said, and want to try to consolidate those and kind of create something out of it, like document while doing, that's gonna be a new thing. Also, super thank you to ContactMonkey for having this event and hosting us. And thank you for everybody who joined. You just took this hour to invest in yourselves, and hope you found it valuable. Let's connect. Let's stay connected. Feel free to find any of us on LinkedIn. I'll pop it in the chat. And thank you. Have a great day, everybody.